Dr. Raven here? It might have been.
No, it's fine. We won't be needing your supplies after all. No, we found a better variant of metagel that allows for an even higher absorption rate among aquatic species. You'd like a sample? Why, of course, we'll be happy to send you one, just as we sent one to every pharmaceutical company in Citadel space.
That is the one that we picked up from the Cerberus Lab mission. So been there, done that.
We were deployed to Tiptree.
We will...
It's a small human colony.
Hold on.
We were supposed to help
Listen to this closely.
The enemy was
Tiptree.
landing. Just scouts, the Turian things, a few of the big ones. We were spread over half the continent, getting colonists to shuttles, wiping out husks.
It sounds like you were doing good work.
Could I have a gun? I'd feel a lot better.
Just tell me what happened at Tiptree.
So we heard a little bit from Miss Asari previously. I didn't really want to head over here right now because there's a series of conversations that we'd kind of like to hear, ideally one right after the other, to get the full story. I'm not sure if you can do them all simultaneously like that, or all subsequently like that, or if you kind of need to wait and do a mission, then come back to the Citadel, come back here, and hear the next component to it. Because, yeah, it might be a little bit harder to keep track if it's spread out like that, but it is actually surprisingly significant. Far more so than you might have realized if you just thought that, if you're just stopping by here, just thought nothing of, oh, it's this random NPC talking about the place that she went. But Tiptree, remember that. He was fighting on Tiptree. Anything else over here? A metagel capacity we could pick up, which is not the worst thing.
Thank you for shopping.
That's a little tempting, to tell you the truth. I am guessing that the person we're looking to turn in this quest to is someone who's hanging out in here, because I thought I remembered there were several people with quests in this area. Possibly this Asari scientist?
I overheard you talking. Grissom Academy is gone, but I found this while I was there.
What is this? Yes, these are tailored to human physiology, but with a few alterations, they should work for the Asari as well. This is exactly what I needed. Thank you.
There you have it. So she was looking for the biotic amps. We got some for humans, but apparently they're easily enough changed to work for Asari as well. Let's see. I think there were people in here who also had quests. At least one person over here who did, but I'm not sure we have the stuff for them.
We need these biotic upgrades to fight the Reapers.
Not sure we are ready to turn stuff in yet for you.
I'm not sitting on this war in a bed.
Lieutenant, listen to me. If you go back with a missing limb, you'll just be a burden to your squad mates.
I'd never drag down my team.
Then the greatest favor you can do them is to rest after your operation.
You mean when you slice my leg off?
May I recommend an hour with our psychiatrist?
I'll think about it.
Remember, this is the guy who needs the leg amputation after he was fighting with his squad. And, yeah, this nurse has been giving the solemn news that, yes, it will need to be amputated, and that does mean that he's not going to be able to help out his squad much anymore for possibly the rest of the war. But we'll see. See, this was, of course... Oh, no. Was this Ashley's room? It may have been. Either that or next one over. But she may be out and about now. And this was her room. Yeah, and we've already, of course, discussed with her, reflected on prior missions, and she does appear to have left. Which is one of the reasons why, when we did catch up with her, I was a little concerned that we might have dilly-dallied a little too much. Actually, Thane is still here. We chat more with Thane.
Coming by again, Shepard? I'm flattered.
Indeed. Did we ask you about all this stuff? We definitely asked you about these two things. I don't remember if we asked about the Keppel syndrome hurting. I imagine we probably did, but... Let's see, just in case, let's go for it.
Are you in a lot of pain?
At times, the oxygen transfer proteins don't form correctly. Your human equivalent would be hemoglobin. As a result, my blood is low in oxygen. No matter how much I breathe in, I get tingling, numbness, and that is the best of it. As for my brain, I cannot track the damage. I just experience dizziness from time to time.
Okay, that does sound vaguely familiar, but...
I wish the best for you, Thane.
And I for you. Do not grieve for me. I have good doctors. My son visits regularly. Perhaps we will keep up via the extranet now that you are free. Until we meet again, Shepard.
And it is good to hear that, although, obviously, Thane's condition is worsening, he does seem to be taking it really well. And he's in a good situation here. He's got the best doctors, as he said, and his son is visiting him regularly, which is awesome.
Welcome, Commander Shepard.
Okay.
Please select a destination.
We might have had some additional things that we could potentially turn in at the, or rather, turn in at the Commons. Let's actually just double check. We got a tiny bit of credits from turning in that mission here at the hospital. Not really enough to change much of anything, though. The next breaking point for us, at least the key breaking point for us, would be 75,000, where we could afford the Hurricane. Otherwise, if we want to, we do have enough monies that we could do a decent amount of upgrade purchasing here. So, it might be worth doing, but of course, if we do that, it's going to take us longer to get the Hurricane. I'm not feeling like that's a desperate need for us to do that, but we are still currently using the starting SMG, which is not ideal. So, it'd be kind of nice to pick that up. So maybe we do. Maybe we do just head on back to the Normandy and start to look to do some bigger missions out and about, and in so doing, pick up some more money so that when we head back over here to the Citadel on a future occasion, we can, in fact, buy the Hurricane and maybe still get other upgrades as well. So let's go to the holding area then, I suppose.
Now arriving at Docking Bay E24.
Okay.
Emergency civilian housing.
Oh, is this where this is not where I wanted to go. I take it back. I take it back. I lied.
Welcome, Commander Shepard.
Normandy
Please
Dock
select a
Bay.
destination.
Imagine that. That's probably where the Normandy is.
One moment, please. Now
Here we
arriving
are.
at Docking Bay D24.
And here, can we go straight back to Normandy? Here we can, if we'd like to, or we can go to Dr. Bryson's lab. No, we're not going to do that yet. We're going to go straight back to Normandy. Anything new, trainer? I mean, we did go to the Normandy, but I'm not, or rather, go to the Citadel, but I'm not really sure that's going to change anything in terms of what people have to say here. We'll use Edie and Joker as a bit of a test case.
Commander?
Hello, Shepard.
Doesn't seem like people have new stuff to say to us then. Of course, one notable thing that we did not end up doing that Citadel trip was we saw what you can do with Liara and her father. We did, however, have to reload that save, and after having done that save reload, we have not yet done that stuff, so on a future occasion we'll have to try to make a mental, or take a mental note that despite having seen that stuff, we've not actually completed it in full on this go-round. So let's, speaking of which, that problem did, at least in part, arise because we did not save enough. So let's make sure we're saving. Okay, so actually, before we head out anywhere, let's just take a look at what is next on the agenda here for our journal. And we do have some additional exploration we could do in some places, like we hear about some additional stuffs in the Ismar Frontier, which I thought we had access to. I'm not sure we have access to every single place within the Ismar Frontier, in which case we might not actually be able to get this thing yet. The Book of Plenix on Irun, potentially try to hunt that down. Alternatively, if we're looking for something other than just general exploration, then we do have stuff like the Tuchanka Turian Platoon, which is the one that Victus wants us to do, or the Attican Traverse Rachni, which is the one that Rex wants us to do. Those are the biggest ones. So let's take a look. And let's use this mass relay here. And... Oh, Ismar Frontier is out here. There's definitely something there. It was the Apian Crest is the place we've been to. Yeah, and that's 100% explored. Whereas Annos Basin we've never been to. Ismar Frontier, we know we have, what is it? One of those search and rescue type things. So why don't we pay a quick visit here? Okay. And this is the only system in this cluster, and there are a lot of planets in it. So does cause a little bit of concern. That means that, of course, if the Reapers do show up here, then we don't have an easy place to escape to other than just this mass relay, which I suppose is doable. But it does also mean that, given how there are no other places for the Reapers to come from, that they may not show up as quickly. I don't think we saw the image of Reapers being hovering over this area. So I don't remember. There's a chance that means they just don't show up, or it might just mean they don't show up as quickly. So there's definitely more for us to scan, but some questions as to whether the Reapers will show up at all, and if so, how quickly. So let's do a scan here. No Reaper attention this time. That may just be because we happen to, or it may just be because there's several reasons why the Reapers are not going to become aware of this very quickly, and so might just have one free pass. Let's try scanning this planet. Reapers? You'll know. Okay, so that would suggest that there is a mission here.
I found something.
And it may be on Metaponto here. Why don't we, while we're at it, just scan this place too? Polino? Okay, why don't we read up on all the planets, and then we'll check out this anomaly here, and maybe that'll be 100% assets recovered, and we know that's all we need to do. If not, then we'll scrounge around a little bit more. Okay, so we have Polino, a relatively small hydrogen-helium gas giant. Polino remains undeveloped, while its sister planet, Metaponto, garners all the attention. This was not always the case. In 2180, which is only, what, like 3 or 4 years ago? 5 years ago? I forget what exactly year this Mass Effect 3 takes place in. Might be 5 years ago. News stories seeded throughout the extranet claimed that Element Zero was being found on Polino's moons in record loads. This turned out to be a scam, spread by the Dunawarachum Consortium, an Elcor corporation trying to scare up investors. After a small fleet of space probes scouted the area, the hype quickly deflated, and the myth only persists now in unwanted extranet email messages. Spam, in other words. Okay, so that is Polino. Now let's check out Metaponto, which we heard some references to in the previous planet. A hydrogen-helium gas giant, Metaponto has developed a helium-3 fueling station funded by Elcor business interests who hope to bring enough attention to the system to attract terraforming investors and thus eventually develop Volturno as a habitable world. Thus far, they have met with little success. Hearing a lot of references to the Elcor, you wonder if... I don't know if this is the home system for the Elcor. I would imagine if they're talking about terraforming place, then perhaps not, but maybe just close to Elcor's homeworld, or just generally Elcor space. See what we have here, though. What is on Metaponto? Is this one of the quests we already knew about? Perhaps. Advanced biotic implants. Oh, that is one of the things that we were looking to pick up. Yes, indeed. Okay. I do believe... Well, that's 100% assets required, okay. So that means we can read up a little bit on these planets, but we know we don't need to search elsewhere for other types of assets. A so-called Super Earth, Volturno is home to organic life, but is nevertheless uninhabitable for the near future. Currently in an ice age, most of the planet from the latitude of 30 degrees north or south is a frozen wasteland, and so most organic life, limited to algae and lichens, resides near the equator. The strong gravity prevents any sapient species but Elcor from thriving on the planet, and the Elcor cannot breathe the planet's atmosphere, which contains lethal amounts of carbon dioxide in addition to oxygen. Small packs of Vorcha squatters are attempting to take the planet for themselves illegally, but most of them live miserable existences in the planet's crushing gravity and die from falls and medical complications. Only terraforming on a massive scale would turn Volturno into a habitable world, and the Elcor lack the political capital with Citadel Council to begin such an effort. So, the Elcor are originally from Dakuna, and that is a planet that has very high gravity, and they are, of all the relatively major Citadel species, the species that is most accustomed to high gravity worlds, so that's why they're the only ones that could make things reasonably work here, although the Vorcha, given their adaptability, can try. So the atmospheric pressure is somewhat Earth-like, 0.83. Temperature's a little bit cold, as they were saying earlier in the description. It does vary a bit depending on where you are on the planet. In some places, not the best for inhabiting, others certainly doable. The gravity, 3.3 Gs, doesn't seem ridiculous, but I mean, I suppose weighing 3.3 times the amount you would usually weigh on Earth would be difficult. It just doesn't seem impossible. Expecting it to be a little bit higher than that. Then, and that explains the Elcor interest, of course. Then we have Vecchio. Vecchio is a moderately sized terrestrial world with a thin, hot atmosphere of carbon dioxide and nitrogen. Initial surveys found trace amounts of iridium, but little else of interest in the silicate desert sands that cover much of the surface of the planet. On a recent tour, the Alliance surveyor ship Coop discovered a group of partial graves hidden in the equatorial mountains ranges. The ancient skeletons in the burial sites are obviously humanoid, but incomplete and poorly preserved, which has made them difficult to identify. That is extremely creepy. Fragments of primitive ceramic grave goods were also found nearby. This raises further questions about who once traveled to this inhospitable planet, since the closest garden world, Volturno, has no intelligent life. Human universities are planning further archaeological investigations. Yeah, that is very odd. Okay, I mean, it's 58 degrees Celsius it's probably too hot to live without any additional assistance, but it's not impossible. Atmospheric pressure, somewhat Earth-like. Gravity, somewhat Earth-like. Remember if you said the atmosphere, carbon dioxide, nitrogen. Okay, you probably like to have oxygen in your atmosphere. Suppose that much is true. And lastly, we have Lepini. A hydrogen-methane gas giant, Lepini and its moons have been cursorily scanned by space probes and found to have little in the way of rare resources. The galaxy at large considers it unremarkable. Sorry, Lepini. I'm afraid you are considered unremarkable. Alright, so that is the Ismar frontier, now 100% explored. And as we were saying, there was no indication of a Reaper on top of this system, which made me think that maybe... I wasn't 100% sure if that meant that Reapers just flat out will not ever invade the system regardless of how many scans you'd use, or if it just means it takes them significantly longer before they start doing that. I mean, either way, we did not see any try to slow us down as we did our scanning, so we made it work. And that could be reason to search around in the Horsehead Nebula and or Petra Nebula. I don't recall as whether we had anything in particular we were looking to do there, but okay. Other than that, so we could theoretically turn in that quest that we just picked up, but I think it's a pretty minor one, so it's probably not reason enough to do that and just turn in that single quest. Probably want to do a little bit more before we head back. So, why don't we... Oh, hold on. Can we... There we go. Exit here to double check for one of our bigger missions where we're looking to go, or can we just confirm with the... Was it this prototype component? Scientists are searching for missing prototypes for a biotic amplification system. Yes. So this is the one that we just picked up. Turn to the scientists on the Citadel. I think that is the one, that is the Solarian that we saw recently in the hospital, but I'm certainly not certain about that. Where is the Book of Plenix? Irun is the planet, but I don't recall as to which system. slash cluster Haroon is in. Which does make that a little tricky to do. So, I mean, we could kind of just go blind into Horsehead Nebula or Petra Nebula, these ones that don't have Reapers on top of them, and try to do some exploration. Or we could go over to, I think the Ninma cluster is probably what we'd be looking to do next in terms of bigger scale missions. Why don't we take a quick look, because as I think I was saying a little while ago, if you are planning to do a mission relatively soon, then doing some exploration beforehand is usually a good thing to do, because if you do happen to get a system overrun by Reapers, then it's nice to be able to reset that soon thereafter when you complete the mission. So maybe we do give this a shot. Okay, and this is the only place, the only system in this cluster. It's Pax. It's Peace. Let's see. Let's take a look. So we have Velis. Just want to see if we have a room here. Novaria. Well, that rings a bell. That rings a bell. Marana. And Svarog. I mean, if we're going to scan, we got to scan Novaria, right? Nothing there. Okay, no Reaper attention. At least not yet. As we were saying, there was no sign of Reapers in the area. Perhaps we just scan like crazy here, but not seeing anything at all. So perhaps, at least at the moment, it's empty. As I was saying, I wasn't sure we had anything that was specifically directing us over there, so that's probably why. We will likely be there on a future occasion for a more intended, deliberately planned visit, but why don't we just take a quick stop at Petra as well? Okay, similarly, cannot go to a different system here, but what do we have? Oh, this is where Grissom was. Grissom Academy. Okay, so we've been here. We've been here then. That explains that. Alright, so, in that case, I think yes. We are probably looking to do what is one of the more significant missions we have currently available to us, that being Investigate Missing Scouts. I believe that is the name of the one in question. Let's just double check, because sometimes the name of the galaxy map and the name we see here is slightly different. Because I'm thinking of Attican Traverse, the Rachni. I mean, that area of the galaxy is the Attican Traverse, so that probably makes sense. A Krogan scouting team has gone missing while investigating rumors of activity at the Rachni Relay. Investigate the missing team and find out what happened. I really just wish that you had, mentioned what the Rachni system, Rachni Relay, where that is and all that, but pretty sure the location in question is this, since the Krogan scouts went missing. Alright. Ooh. We have a few things here. Let's see what the deal is. We have a listening post X19. What is the deal there? Listening Post X19 was built shortly after the Rachni Wars, just in case any Rachni survived the annihilation of Suen. Given the mentions of the Rachni, sounds like we are probably in the right place. The post orbits the mass relay, and is still manned and maintained, although today it largely exists as a customs checkpoint for researchers studying the Rachni homeworld. Among members of the Council militaries, being assigned to the station is seen as a form of punishment or exile, considering that there have been no signs of sapient life on Suen for over 1,000 years. Yeah, so basically you just get sent out to the middle of nowhere, with nothing to do. Suppose makes sense as a punishment. 340 people there, I think it said, for that punishment. See if there's anything we can identify over here that might be worth checking. Didn't hear anything pop up, though. Actually, the scouts are in a different area. A different system. So that would suggest that there may be other things of interest here. We have Damkiana. Damkiana, as the main source of helium-3 in the Maskim-Zul system, is orbited by abandoned recovery stations that the Rachni built during the days of conquest. Because the Rachni trusted in their high tolerance for radiation, the stations were poorly shielded against cosmic rays and have deteriorated over time. The Citadel species built their own stations during the Rachni War, several of which have been maintained to this day. Okay, but nothing of interest there. It's nothing that we know about. We haven't really done any scans yet, but we probably will do that soon. Then we have Ashaptu, double SH, just to make sure you got the sh going. Ashaptu is the first terrestrial planet in the Rachni that the Rachni visited after achieving spaceflight. Although most of Kashaptu is composed of silicate minerals, the Rachni made an important discovery when they charted the Howling Gulf, an enormous crater near the planet's equator. Is that rhyme intended? Probably not. The depression was caused by the impact of several dozen extrasolar asteroids containing large quantities of element 0. The Rachni took samples of the new element back to Suen for further study. Okay. Speaking of Suen, this is it. So is this the Rachni Homeworld right here? Suen, the Rachni Homeworld, is tightly locked to the system's red dwarf. With one side constantly bombarded by the sun and the other side completely frozen, life evolved in the Terminator, the perpetual twilight zone between Suen's two extremes. The Rachni mainly foraged underground. Suen's abundant subterranean rivers presented them with a place to thrive. Wrestling with the engineering problems of Suen's extreme surface environment may have given the Rachni their first insights into how to build interstellar spacecraft. It's still hard to grasp that the Rachni, which seemingly, based on how we encountered them in Mass Effect 1, just did not give off the impression of being an intelligent species capable of building things. I mean, they don't have opposable thumbs, pretty sure. But somehow, not only can they build things and become engineers, they can build spaceships. So, yeah, they're impressive from a technological standpoint. What they've been able to, or what they were able to do. Suen was the site of the last battle in the Rachni Wars. When Krogan forces bombarded the planet, the Rachni abandoned their surface buildings for the security of their tunnels. The Krogan, resistant to Suen's toxic atmosphere, carried weapons of mass destruction into the secret chambers of the Rachni Queens and detonated explosions so powerful the sinkholes are still visible today. So what is the deal here? Atmospheric pressure a little bit thin, but somewhat Earth-like. It is a little on the hot side at the Terminator, the place where all that life exists, and the gravity is a little bit light as well. So nothing that we know about yet, but we haven't yet to scan anything, so I think we've got to scan Suen, right? I'm not seeing anything. Okay, except for Reapers, who are now very much interested in our presence. But this is the thing. We probably do want to make a point of doing the scans now, so that if we do make a run for Molat Sol, we can hopefully reset the attention that the Reapers have on this system here. Question is, if not Suen, then where? I don't think we got Shop 2 with our scan there. This is probably going to be enough to attract Reaper attention. That certainly will be. So we're going to go now. We're going to go now. We're not going to wait around for them to show up. So, now, let us see. This is Mulasol, the place where we have the mission. So that means the Reapers shouldn't show up here. This is a huge ringed planet over here. I mean, in theory, we should be able to scan. Verify. No Reaper attention. No Reaper attention. Okay. Kef. What is the deal, Kef? Kef is a hydrogen-helium gas giant. Records show that the planet should have a helium-3 mining infrastructure, but scans find nothing of the sort. They are neither abnormal heat sources nor space junk from destroyed refineries. If the infrastructure was removed, It was removed entirely, and within the last few years. That's a little alarming, given how we're talking about Rachni space here. Who would have done that in Rachni space? Remember that, of course, in Mass Effect 1, we did choose to free the Rachni Queen, and we basically said, you better not do anything silly here and try to, restart the Rachni Wars. But she promised she wouldn't do that, so we're hoping that's the case, although, I mean, she had to go somewhere. Did she go here? Perhaps. This little planet here, Inakos? Nothing of the sorts, no updates. For anomalies, Inakos is a metallic asteroid. The surface was once rated for its abundant olivine, which is used for carbon sequestration on heavily populated worlds. Huh. Sounds like we could use that here on Earth. More than half the mass of the asteroid has been depleted, exposing its relatively pure iron-nickel core. Okay. Nothing of interest there. Just do a quick loop here and see if there's anything else we notice in the asteroid belt, but I'm not hearing anything, so I don't think there is. And there is Utuku, which is the place that we're planning to go, so maybe we save that one for last. Maldor. I mean, there may not be anything to scan here, it may just be that mission. The Krogan surveying team that first reported back from Maldor said, in characteristic understatement, that the planet had a bit of the good stuff, if you can get past a little acid. Although Maldor's mineral wealth includes uranium, iridium, and other heavy metals, miners must contend with crushing gravity and atmosphere, boiling temperatures, and clouds of sulfur dioxide. As such, once the planet's most accessible ores were depleted, the mining interests that exploited the planet quickly departed. So, yeah. 52, almost 53 Earth atmospheres of pressure, you're getting crushed by that. 361 degrees Celsius, that's pretty hot. Gravity is also a little unpleasantly strong. Anything else further inside here? Doesn't seem so. It looks like it's just Utuku here. So though Utuku is habitable, extreme temperatures and violent weather have discouraged colonization. Because the planet has little liquid water to retain heat, surface temperatures regularly oscillate between positive 70 degrees Celsius and negative 60 degrees Celsius. Utuku's vegetation is notable for having evolved flexible central stalks to survive high-speed winds, as well as leathery leaves to shrug off the planet's frequent sandstorms. Animal life is mostly confined to the planet's small oceans. Utuku has few valuable minerals. Atmospheric pressure, a little bit on the strong side, but temperature is reasonable, gravity's pretty reasonable, so I suppose it makes sense that there's some life here. I mean, it takes a whole lot more than that, but at least no glaring signs of things that are horribly wrong. Other than large range of temperature and these winds and dust storms and what have you. So as a reminder, this mission is the one that Rex wanted us to go on to check out his Krogan scout team that has gone missing. So let's go investigate. Okay, so when it comes to our team here, who we'd like to choose to bring with us, I think what we'd like to do is we'd like to focus a bit on going for basically, I think crowd control is going to be one of the most important factors. And so for that reason, obviously we have a lot of that with Commander Shepard since we are an adept, so we can do things like singularity, which is really helpful, and pull and throw to a lesser extent. When it comes to other teammates capable of doing that, Liara is, of course, the most logical choice there because she is also someone who has access to a bunch of biotics. So her singularity is not as highly upgraded as ours is, but stasis as well is another thing we can use for crowd control purposes. And then, obviously, with her warp, being able to biotically detonate those things is also useful. So I do like that. Javik could be a decent option as well. Not quite as good from a crowd control standpoint, because what are you going to use? Pull for crowd control or slam? Did we upgrade slam? We might have upgraded slam enough so that it actually does have the ability to hit multiple people simultaneously. Dark Channel is useful as well, more just for pure damage than for crowd control per se, but maybe balances us out a little bit between the biotics and just pure damage that way. So I'm thinking we might go for those two. You could certainly make the case for Garrus on this mission. In fact, I think there are some characters who have some unique dialogue for this mission, and in fact, almost everyone might have some unique dialogue. It might just be a matter of whose dialogue is the coolest, in which case it's obviously just a matter of personal preference, but I think Javik has some pretty cool stuff. Garrus also has some pretty cool stuff. There may even be some other ones that I'm less familiar with, but I think I'm gonna go with Javik plus Liara here, because we've done a whole lot of Garrus. We have also done a lot of Liara, but not as much with Javik. So we'll try to give him a chance here. Okay, and in terms of our weapons, so I think we're probably sticking with the Acolyte here, and probably sticking with the Shuriken. We have not yet been able to afford the Hurricane, but we're surprisingly close. Maybe after this mission, we'll have to see. Then for Liara, I think it's probably still Scorpion. It's probably still the Shuriken as well. So, I mean, unless we have new upgrades for her of any significance. Heatsink might be better for her than the Scope. Probably is. Then for Javik, yeah, you're probably sticking with the Particle Rifle. Well, we could have you stick with the Particle Rifle, which is, of course, thematically fitting, but with it being a Prothean weapon, and Javik obviously being a Prothean, it is still a strong weapon. It is definitely good. However, is it as good as the Typhoon, especially in this set of circumstances? That's a good question. That's a good question. I honestly was not even thinking about Javik when I was thinking of the Typhoon. Garrus, as I said, is absolutely the top person who does come to mind. The person that we, for the most part, exclusively purchased this weapon for. Well, it doesn't have to be exclusively, though. James was the second person who came to mind, where I was saying a little bit earlier how we might keep him on the Particle Rifle. I think I was saying this earlier. Might keep him on the Particle Rifle. Might switch him over to the Typhoon. You could potentially make the case for the Particle Rifle because it does work well with his explosive incendiary ammo. Javik doesn't have that explosive incendiary ammo, though. He does not have any ammo effect at all. He doesn't have the same type of crazy assault rifle weapon scaling or additional armor piercing that Garrus has, but it's probably still worth going Typhoon, because it is extremely heavy, but it doesn't matter for squad mates because weight is not a factor for squad mates. We will probably go the base damage upgrade and then add a little more piercing is what I'm thinking. You could, well, you can make the case for increasing the magazine size. I think for Garrus, that might be very justifiable because he just has so much damage that the longer he's holding down the trigger, the more enemies are dead, and the more enemies are not firing back at you. I'm not sure Javik has enough damage with his scaling to as reliably take enemies down that quickly, and so if he's just hanging out of cover, shooting longer, then he's more vulnerable, and since he's not going to be killing people quite as quickly, he may just go for the piercing and just try to focus, take people down as quickly as possible, and if you need to duck back into cover to reload, might not be a bad thing because it'll keep you a little bit safer. I think we might go with that. And then your pistol, probably take the Scorpion as well, to be honest. And so Scorpion has projectile-based weapons. It does not work with the armor piercing, so we'll go with that. Let's see. And did we do that for Liara as well, right? We put on those same mods? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I think in that case we're good there. with our weapons. Then for our abilities here, we were talking earlier about how we did level up while we were on the Citadel, completing some missions previously. And in doing so, that allowed us to get enough for at least Fitness 4. The problem is Fitness 4 is not very exciting. The 20% melee damage is not really something we're trying to prioritize, but it is necessary if we're trying to make it all the way down to the durability and barrier recharge and additional health and shields over here. So I think we may still opt to go this route now, and of course if we happen to get a level during this mission, then that would give us enough points, presumably, to get durability, and that would start to make a little bit more of a difference for this mission. So yeah, I think we could wait until we have enough to do it all in one fell swoop, just in case we want to spend it elsewhere. Yes, there's nothing wrong with that, since the short-term upgrade just isn't going to do much of anything for us. Then with Javik, what do we want to do with him here? Because we have fully upgraded Dark Channel. So this is a primer for biotic explosions, and we certainly have plenty of ways to detonate biotic explosions with what is a 100% biotic team. So that is nice. It is also just a ton of damage. But that solves one thing. Slam is the crowd control option. Remind ourselves what we took here. So yeah, we did increase the radius to 2 meters. Force, recharge speed. Okay, so if we had taken the stun, that would have been more crowd control. We instead went for spamming it more often. And I'm hoping that pays off. But, so he has some crowd control with this. It's probably not going to be as good as the singularities will be, but it's something. Then, pull, I'm not really sure we want to put any more points in that, because pull is generally not all that intriguing. So then the question becomes, do we go Lift Grenade or Vengeful Ancient? Vengeful Ancient looks like the direction we started to go in here. Does mean more health, more shields, more power damage, which is an intriguing option, and he gets a lot more of that the more we invest here. So I'm thinking we might want to go that route, unless, I mean, how do we feel about the grenades? Grenades, just to remind ourselves what Lift Grenade is all about, lob this grenade into a group of enemies to send them flying. Does mean crowd control. 5 meters radius is a pretty big radius, and 787 damage is pretty substantial as well. Deal high damage. That's not wrong. I actually don't remember what the grenade capacity starts off with, because in most cases for multiplayer Gwent, your grenade capacity to start off with is just 1, which is obviously not a lot. It's hard to rely on that skill very often then. Thought it was actually a little bit higher in single player, though, at least with Shepard. Maybe Shepard is different from other squad mates, though? I'm not entirely sure. But might be kind of interesting to at least have 1 point in there for it in case of emergency. Because, like, for example, this would be, what, 2 points, additional 3 points, that puts us at 5 points spent, meaning we have 3 points remaining. So we could go with 2 points in Vengeful Ancient to get some more power damage and health and shields, which is certainly good. And then we have enough for exactly 2 levels in Lift Grenade then for having it, and then increasing the capacity by 1. It could be worth doing unless we want to try to rush over to the next upgrade for Vengeful Ancient after that, in which case we could potentially get additional health and shields. So, or power damage. So, I think at the very least, we're definitely going to want to do this. And this. Question now is just, do you save? Because with 1 more level, we would have enough to take the next upgrade here. Or do you say, okay, you know, we'll keep our options open here and at least have 1 Lift Grenade or 2 Lift Grenades? What if we spend 1 here? So we need, what, 4 points for this level, and I think we get at least 2 points whenever we level up. So I think we can spend 1 point Lift Grenade, have this as a panic button for Javik, and then if we level, we should, I think, still have enough to take this level here. So that's Javik. Then for Liara. For you, warp ammo actually would start to become very relevant here for you, because we don't have any ammo abilities with our current squad, and warp ammo, just as a reminder, is particularly good against barriers and armor. Vulnerable opponents already lifted by biotics also take a damage bonus. What weakens the armor of grounded targets, basically making it so that their damage protection from having armor is less of a thing. So kind of like the armor ignoring effects of armor piercing ammo. So that is kind of intriguing, especially for going up against big enemies. There you see lifted target damage. I think is actually a little misleading. I think it is quite literally any enemy that is primed by biotics, regardless of whether they're technically in the air or not. And with a full biotic team, that's a pretty big deal. That could be 50% additional damage almost all the time. So that's why that is kind of a nice option. The thing is, I'd love to get this on a squad bonus, but we are definitely not going to have enough points for that. We could at least have Liara take what? Rank 1, rank 2. She can't afford rank 3. We'd have 2 points remaining. Can we do anything with 2 points? No, we can't. So it's basically, no, we can't. So it's basically 2 points into warp ammo. It's 1 point into stasis to increase the damage before stasis breaks. Basically, the thing is, stasis does have this duration, but it also breaks if the opponent that is being stasis takes a bunch of damage. It's actually not a lot of damage it takes for it to break unless you take this option. That is probably the route we would take. We could upgrade her singularity more. We could upgrade her pure biotic more. This would mean definitely would not go weapons damage with her. Increase power, force, and duration by 30 seconds, which duration for 30 seconds on something like stasis would be kind of nice, because that's a pretty huge deal for something that already lasts 7. Well, as I said, it's actually the damage threshold that after which they break out of that is usually the limiting factor, so I suppose duration doesn't matter that much for it. More so the case for singularity in that case, if anything, but I think warp ammo is a little too good to turn down. We opted not to take it when we first had Liara because we were relying on people like James for ammo effects, but now with no James and with a biotic heavy party, I think even if it's just Liara here at the moment who's benefiting from it, it's too good to pass up.